Good evening. On behalf of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, I'd like to welcome you to the 6th Annual Hall of Fame ceremony. My name is Kurt Ellis. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, a proud Saline High School alum, and it's my pleasure to serve tonight as your Master of Ceremonies. One of the most enjoyable parts of the Hall of Fame weekend is the opportunity to see people catch up with lifelong friends, former colleagues, and in some cases even former students. Tonight we have a number of previous Hall of Fame inductees with us, and I would like to have those people recognized. If you are a previous Hall of Fame inductee and you're in the audience with us tonight, please stand. This weekend is always made possible because of the generous support of our partners, and we have 3 key partnerships that we would like to recognize here tonight. R&B Plastics and Machinery, A&H Lawn Service, and Dr. Catherine Kelly. This weekend would not be possible without their generous support, and we are very grateful to them for that. So Fred Piercy, Tim Austin, and Dr. Catherine Kelly, thank you very much for your support. A little over 6 years ago, there were a number of us on the alumni committee that were discussing ways that we could recognize and honor individuals who had done exemplary things for our community and for our school district. And the concept of the Hall of Fame was born from those discussions. We looked for folks who have demonstrated outstanding individual ability, character, leadership, personal drive, and dedication. In essence, we looked for people who have really created the foundation for which Saline Area Schools has been built upon. Now that we're electing our 6th Hall of Fame class, you start to look for common traits among the people that have been inducted and among the people that are inducted tonight. We've got folks who are in Hall of Fames for their respective coaching accomplishments. We've got folks who have done exemplary things in the classroom and have been honored by their professional associations. We've got world-renowned musicians. We've got folks who have done some unbelievable things in the sports world. But I believe when you look for the common traits among the people that we've inducted, the one thing that stands out to me is passion. They all have been passionate about the work they've done. They've all been passionate about service to others. And through their passion, they have all impacted people in ways that continue to live on long beyond their service to the district. These 6 are no exception to that. I am confident that you too will find these individuals more than deserving of the recognition that they are receiving here tonight. So as we begin, we're going to start with a distinguished alumni, class of 1984, Jennifer Allison. After graduating from Saline High School, Jennifer graduated from the University of Michigan and then went on to American University. She's a teacher, she's an author of a children's mystery series called Gilda Joyce. It started with Gilda Joyce, Psychic Investigator. She currently lives in the Chicago area where she teaches world literature and creative writing at the Woodland Academy for the Sacred Heart, Woodlands Academy for the Sacred Heart. And tonight, she's accompanied by her 3 children, Max, Marcus, and Gigi. And one of the things, again, that I think is really exemplary about our Hall of Fame is the fact that the accomplishments of these people serve to continue to inspire others. And I hope that her 3 children tonight can appreciate what their mother is being honored for. So, Jennifer.
Good evening, and thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you to the Foundation for Saline Area Schools for this opportunity to come back home and to just reconnect with some people who really inspired me, and also just to see this amazing school. I am really, this is my first opportunity to be here, and it's always great to come back to Saline, but to be in this environment is really impressive, and I really am in awe. When I was reflecting on this opportunity to come back to Saline and to receive this honor and this opportunity, I was thinking about some of the things that stand out over the years, not just the things that we learn in the classroom, the skills that take us on to college, college and then onto career, but what is it that, over a lifetime, over decades, you still remember? And some of the things are the funny things that the teachers never realize that their students are remembering. And so some of the things that came up were the way Mrs. Weintraub, one of my English teachers, she taught grammar really well. But what I remembered was the way she would say tough rocks. If people complained, it was like, well, tough rocks. And in this kind of humorous tone and I was talking to my brother, and we both remembered this. And then what came up was the way Mr. Koppelman would throw erasers. And that really stands out. I remember, it's like, oh, that's right, he would really do that. And it was this sense of enthusiasm and joy and humor that would come into the classroom, and it stays with me. And then, of course, Mr. Marceau's research seminar, which was this rite of passage. But I don't remember any of the papers I wrote. I developed research skills that were very real. But what I remember was you had to stay up all night long. No matter how many hours you put in before, it was, at least in my era, it was like you have to stay up all night long before that paper is due. And so it's fun to look back on what stays in the deepest memories. And I think that some of that is the human connection and these ways that whatever the content is that we're learning about, it's the way that we connect as a community, and the way these teachers it wasn't just what they taught, but it was, as Kurt was saying, their passion, and also just who they were, their personalities. And I found myself really having this opportunity to look back and with real appreciation and gratitude for who they were. When I was growing up, I loved books. I was one of those kids who felt that books were kind of like little realms of freedom. I could go into a book and it would really transport me to another world. But I also loved the fact that I could find in a book the feeling of a kindred spirit, even though I was reading about people who were very different from me. And when you think about it, when you read a book and you're really into it, you sort of become another person for that window of time. You think their thoughts, you have their experiences. And so I really grew to realize that books and writing can really build empathy. It's not the only way, but it's a part of it, and it's something that definitely the teachers that I had at Saline, they brought that to what they taught. They were teachers who put books in my hands, and they noticed the kind of person I was, and they cared enough to notice my interests, and they gave me those opportunities, that access to books. Right now, the audience that I primarily write for is right at that middle school, young adult age, and that's often an age when fear can set in, and that can be fear of not fitting in, fear of not being successful enough, fear based on difficult experiences. And when I write for that audience, or when I work with those students as a teacher, what I really want to accomplish is to help young people find that bridge back, to their authentic self, that bridge back to their true feelings and their true opinions. And sometimes it's through writing and finding that perfect book that we really can do that. And it's not books alone, though, it's within that community, and it's within that caring environment where a teacher really wants to hear what you have to say. And so I found myself, again, reflecting on so many people who not only taught me in a way that was motivating and helped me believe not only that I could gain writing skills, but that it was possible to follow a dream. And the way they did that was that they were positive, and they were motivating, and they took an interest. And a couple other mentions, people like Mr. Smith in his history class, the way he brought this passion to what he taught, the way he infused literature into the study, and then of course Mrs. Thomas, who worked with me on preparing speeches for competition. She and another speech teacher, Mrs. Gordon, listened to a speech I wrote maybe like 100 times. I mean, I hardly remember what was on it. It had something to do with chemical warfare, and it was, I did my best, but they listened to it so many times, and they never acted bored. I mean, here, at the end of a long teaching day, and a student comes in, and we're going to listen to it again. they always had time and they always acted interested. And it was really Mrs. Thomas who helped me in a way that she might not know, which was we were going to a competition and I really wanted to win and I was really nervous. And she said, well, you know, she said, when I feel nervous, I just imagine that I'm part of the masses of humanity and it kind of takes the pressure off. And that really got me thinking. It's like, oh, because what she was saying is you have permission to make a mistake, you have permission to grow, and it's not just about you, it's about connecting through communication. And as a writer, that's what I'm interested in, is connecting with the reader. As a teacher, I'm interested in connecting with my students and for them to connect with each other. And I really found myself realizing how it was these teachers in Saline who set that example for me from a young age, even long before I thought it would ever be possible for me to be a writer. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity and just heartfelt gratitude to all of the teachers that I had, many that I didn't mention. Thank you.
Jennifer mentioned that research seminar class, and I had kind of a PTSD moment.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of young people here with us tonight, but those who are young, I don't think fully appreciate the pressure of writing a paper in APA style, only to find out that your margins were off and you had to literally go back and retype everything. So just copy and edit and paste and all that fun stuff. So interesting experiences for sure. The next individual I want to introduce to you tonight is a gentleman by the name of Jim Cameron. Jim was a history and economics teacher at Saline High School for 37 years. And he retired from teaching in 2010, but has continued to remain active in the world of education ever since. He has served in the Michigan and National Councils for History Education. In 2010, he was honored with the Gilder Lehrman Teacher of the Year Award for Michigan, and he serves as a social studies consultant for the Michigan Department of Education. Locally, some of you may know that Jim also authored an award-winning book called Voices Over the Valley, an oral history of Saline Valley farmers, which has been a great read. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Cameron.
There are three groups that I would recognize as contributing to my being at the stage this evening. First of all, the Saline teachers, past and present, that when I took my first teaching job in a school farther north, my principal, upon giving me the job, gave me a history textbook and a handshake and said, "Go get him, Tiger." And so I thought, okay, I wanted to be a teacher. This is my opportunity. So for 3 years, I worked hard at that school, and I felt I was getting better and better. And boy, 3 years of this, and I had this under control. I can do this. I took a year off, got a master's at Eastern. So wow, you know, 3 years of teaching experience, a master's degree. Look out, Saline Area. And then I got in the classroom and visited with different people in the hallways or after school. And at the high school, people like Bob Marcereau and March McNally and Jean Hutt and Liz Moore. And the more I got to know these people, the more I realized I had a challenge. And then I coached some football and basketball at the middle school, and I knew there were some middle school teachers like Marlene Weintraub and Dave Johnson and the guy who looked goofy, Dwayne Koppelman or something like that. But all of these people put together made me realize that as good as I thought I was after 3 years, that if I was going to play in this game, I really had to up my game to be anything like these people. And so for the teachers, past and present, I appreciate the challenge that you gave me to help me to reach my potential. The second group are administrators. That should surprise some people. But Superintendent Scott Graydon, Assistant Superintendent Kurt Ellis, Principal David Raff, former Principal Kevin Musson. They taught me discipline, they taught me patience, they taught me what it was to be given really weak homework. They taught me how to put up with practical jokes, but it's not because they were administrators, it's because they were former students. And I do know some stories about them. could be the reason that I am up here. It just goes to show you that knowledge can be a powerful thing. And the third group, of course, is family. My mom and dad are both teachers. My older brother and sister were teachers. And they set a good example for me as far as what it takes to be a teacher, and that it's not a job, it's a career, it's what you do, it's who you are. And that was very, very important to me. And then, of course, most important, my wife of 49 years, 9 days, and about 2.5 hours. Best decision I ever made, thank you, Marcia, that she's been my support all of this time, and I really appreciate it. Additionally, I have 3 kids that went through Saline Schools. My older son, Kyle, is with us tonight, but tomorrow at this time he'll be halfway to China. He teaches English and is learning Mandarin in China. This will be your 7th year, is that right? Going back for his 7th year. Our daughter, who couldn't make it tonight, she was with us last night, but she's a international trade compliance lawyer in Wisconsin, and she has a conference that starts tomorrow morning. So she's at this very moment flying to Baltimore to go to this conference. And then my younger son, Dan, is at the University of Michigan at the International Institute. And all 3 of these kids are graduates of Saline High School and benefited from the teachers here and teachers who have gone before. So again, thank you to the teachers past and present. I also want to mention my son-in-law, Mike Murphy, my daughter's husband, who is, he's a Michigan State fan, but other than that, he's a good guy. But he's just been a great addition to the family, and he is a parent with my daughter for Alexandra Cameron Murphy and Aurora Cameron Murphy. And so those are the 2 new lights of my life. But thank you, Saline, thank you, teachers, thank you, administrators, and thank you, family.
Mr. Cameron and I did agree to a peace pact last night on the 50-yard line. So I appreciate his discretion and not sharing in some of the stories that he could have. The next individual I want to introduce to you tonight is Kenny Feldkamp. Ken Feldkamp was a 1972 graduate of Saline High School, and he spent 51 of his 64 years working in or going to school in the district. Kenny was a custodian, as you heard last night, at Union School and at Houghton, and he cared for the school buildings he worked in like they were his own home. In the same way, he cared for the students and staff that he worked with as if they were his own family. He held himself to a high standard. If you ever saw the floors that Kenny waxed, you'll know that he took great pride in that. And if you ever scratched one of the floors that Kenny had waxed, you'll know that he wasn't happy about it. But as much as he loved the schools and he loved the work he did, his true passion for anybody who knew him was his family. Tonight, Nancy, John, and Amy, and later their grandchildren are here to celebrate this accomplishment on his behalf. Tonight, Kenny's son, John, will accept this Hall of Fame plaque in his father's honor.
I just want to first say thank you to everybody who made it possible for my father, Ken's induction tonight into the Hall of Fame, specifically the foundation, and everybody else who made that possible. I'm sorry my dad can't be here tonight, but although I'm going to try not to cry as much as he would have, I promise to still laugh at my own jokes louder than anybody else, inheriting my dad's great ability. I was thinking about if he were here tonight, how he would have been preparing for this evening, and I was thinking about how he'd have his suit on, and it would be a little bit too big, and not to start off on a morbid note, but I can just hear him telling a joke of how he couldn't get it messy while here tonight, because the next time he'd be wearing it would be for his casket photos, and I just appreciate my dad's humor in that. I think we'd all be in the same moment trying to react to what exactly to say. But at the same time, I know that my dad would have really appreciated it. thank you so much for taking the time to acknowledge his contributions to the schools. The Hall of Fame, I had an opportunity to see the plaques out in the hallway and to just see what I would describe as a mosaic. Hearing the common attribute of passion definitely seems fitting, but to have my dad have the opportunity to have his skills and attributes added to that, I think like a mosaic, it gives an opportunity to add a new texture and a different shade to the collection. My dad was by no means perfect, even though he may have made you feel like he thought he was at the same time, specifically with his cleaning. But at the same time, I don't think you need to be perfect to be inducted into this group, and I wanted to take some time just to acknowledge some of the things over the years that I've had a chance to observe. Saline Area Schools, as it says in the program, was a part of his life for 51 years. And I know that had a huge influence on the shaping and forging of his qualities and the best parts of him. And I'm hoping to share some of those with you tonight. I know his heart was in farming, but truly, you may have seen him during the day at school, but his spirit was really in these buildings and in these walls and in these floors. So my dad, I would say, as I've had a chance to think about my father a little bit more the last couple of years, I think discipline is something that comes to mind. And I know we can probably share stories about how he would give us feedback about making sure that we held ourselves to our own high standards. But really what I appreciate about my father is the high standard that he held for himself. My bedroom being next to my parents growing up, hearing the alarm go off every morning at the same time, knowing that he'd have the same routine that he had had for 38 years working here. I don't know if I've ever known somebody to have such capacity to be able to take on so much, working at schools during the day, farming at night. I'm sure he was more than happy to brag about things that he was doing at night with his brother Albert at the farm, but at the same time, I'm sure you could count on him to be there, be present, and give everything that he had to his job, because he really valued his role in helping not just the students have a great day, but also helping his fellow teachers and colleagues. I think the best way to quantify Ken's commitment to the schools is the 300 sick days that he accumulated and did not cash in at the end of his tenure here. My mom was quite excited to see how many sick days he had at the end. But at the same time, I can hear my dad also say, if I'm not going to feel well, I might as well go to work, as opposed to just sitting around here not doing anything. So I can hear him quite well with that. But self-discipline, something that I've learned to appreciate about my father. Also, something else that I think embodies him quite well is reflective. Once again, I know you saw him during the days at school and everything he was doing. Following him around like I did quite often at the schools, whether I gained back to school or on my way to school, I always appreciated how he was walking down the halls, always had a pencil tucked in under his hat, by his ear, walking around the building looking for things that he was going to have to work on. And then he'd be sitting at the kitchen table watching TV, having dinner, and all of a sudden it would strike him that he had something that he had to write down on his list so he would make sure he didn't forget about it the next day. But also the fact that he really was just naturally curious and that he always liked to figure out how to fix something, and not just in terms of the things that he contributed to school, but also I know he was really curious to get to know everybody as well. I always appreciated how he would have conversations with everybody, checking in with the vacations, how the family was doing. But really just a reflective guy. And finally, as far as the attributes, just committed. I really appreciated, looking back now, as far as my dad, everything that he would try to do. He'd monitor the weather, making sure that he knew if there was a bad snow on the way, that he was going to get up early enough to make sure that the school would be ready. My mom and I were talking about how when there was a really cold period here, how he was going in when this over the weekend, making sure that the building was heated to make sure that pipes wouldn't freeze and you'd have a problem there. And so I really appreciate now growing up having a chance to have seen somebody take such commitment to their work. And then finally, something that's been a common theme that people have shared with my family and I is just how much my dad loved the students and helped being a part of the students' lives. And I can't help but just think about how that comes about, other than the love that my dad felt as a child growing up as well. So taking the time to say thank you to to Albert and to Janet and to Diane for being great siblings for my dad, as well as Jace and Earl becoming brothers to him as well as he got older. And it's been a true joy to be his son and feel the love that he was able to give, as well as witnessing what he was able to give to my sister and my niece and nephew as well. So last thing, as far as my dad, I was just thinking about now this constant paradox I have with him, where I know he's passed away, at the same time I feel like he's still alive. And the time that I feel closest to my dad, so now I work at the University of Michigan, typically at the end of the day when everybody else is gone, going around, now I find myself going around my office suite, making sure everything's put away, locked up. I tell everybody when they're going through the locking up process, how you have to check the doors, make sure the locks are turned. Being the son of a custodian, we learn these habits. And going around, making sure all those things are done. Nobody pays me to do it, nobody asks me to do it, but I just know it's something that has to be done. And I think that's the motto that my dad embodied the most, doing the work because it needed to be done, and because that's how much it meant to him. And I don't know if there could be a better attribute to describe a farmer, a custodian, a parent, but especially my dad. So thank you once again, very much appreciated, and congratulations to all the other inductees as well.
Our fourth inductee here tonight is Mr. Dwayne Koppelman. Dwayne taught middle school math for 34 years, and as I wrote that out, I kept thinking to myself, 34 years of middle school math. How do you do that? Unfortunately, Dwayne gave the answer when he shared some of the reflections about his Hall of Fame plaque. He had a simple 6-step approach in the classroom. He used enthusiasm, voice inflection, facial expression, nonverbal communication, precise language, and humor to connect with his students. I know there are at least 3 of us, and maybe a few more, that actually did get targeted with erasers when we were in school. And in 2019, when you think about a teacher throwing an eraser at a child, you probably think that's going to end up on the news someplace. Yeah. I can tell you in the 1980s, none of us who were targets of those erasers felt that way. What we knew was that that teacher was paying attention to what we were doing. We knew that teacher cared about our learning, and we knew that we needed to straighten up and pay attention. Still do. In addition to teaching, Dwayne coached 10 seasons of JV football, 13 seasons of middle school basketball, 30 seasons of middle school track, 9 seasons of middle school basketball, and 3 seasons of, high school basketball and 3 seasons of middle school basketball. Needless to say, Dwayne was absolutely all in when it came to his students. Ladies and gentlemen, Dwayne Koppelman.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. Thanks for that nice introduction. Also, I wanted to say thanks to Ann Hurst Kurtz, the Executive Director of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, and thanks to the rest of the members of the Executive Board and also the Selection Committee for the Foundation. You've just done some outstanding work in creating the support and the foundation for, just a phenomenal growth and support for the rest of the teachers of the district. I know myself, I was a recipient of an award for some calculators. As they were just starting to come out, they were probably some just simple 4-function calculators, but it really helped the kids. So thanks to the foundation. I accept this induction into the Hall of Fame with great honor. It was a thrill, but totally unexpected. I just went about doing my job every day and wanted to have fun with the kids in the classroom. I've got a couple thank yous here. I want to say thanks to my wife, Susan, of 51 years. She was a great support and took care of the household and all the chores, taking care of the kids. And our two children, Cindy, who is now a high school art teacher here at Saline, and her husband, Tim. And tonight with him is also his daughter, Jackie. My son, Ryan, both of them, my kids graduated from Milan, but Ryan and Cindy did a great job in school. Didn't have to worry about them. Really contributed to the athletics at Milan High School. Ryan is now out in California as a patent attorney. So I'm very proud of both of my children. Also in the audience tonight, my brother Gary and his wife Bev is here. I'd like to just take an honor, just a second, and say, Gary is a National Science Teacher of the Year Award winner as a 5th grade science teacher a couple years ago. So very proud to have him as part of the family. I want to say a couple of thanks to all the building principals that I had. Joe Graff, Joe Schwartz, and some of the assistant principals of Ellen Ewing, Tom Sy, Terry Walters. So great support people in the building. I also want to say thanks to all the other coaches who were part of the coaching teams, the teams that we coached. Teams in football, wrestling, basketball, track. Especially to Jack Crabtree, gave me some really good start in coaching some football. But I also want to say thanks to Mike Price. Mike Price is no longer with us, but him and I spent a lot of time coaching middle school track. Long time. Of course, his famous saying, so I got to say it tonight, His Honor. Hey, just run hard and lean left. I want to say thanks to the last group of teachers that I worked with as a team at the middle school. That was Debbie Budnick, Deneen Madeley, and Marcy McCormick. We had a great team. We did some very special projects through the year, and they were interdisciplinary projects. So, great team to work with. Yes, I enjoyed my career here at Saline because I was able to combine a couple of love activities, math and athletics. So let's take a minute, let's go back to 1971. I was just hired by Joe Graff, the principal. Harold Hentz was the principal at that time. And I was walking down the hallway about 2 weeks after I'd started here. And the building was the President Liberty Building, which in 71 was now the first year middle school, because they just built a high school in 1971, which is on Maple Road. But anyway, I was walking down the hallway, past the gym and cafeteria, and I stopped for a second and said, this looks familiar. Yeah, didn't think much about it, kind of a deja vu moment. Walked a little bit farther towards the band and got to the band room and stopped again. I've been here before. Come to think of it, in 1961, I was a sophomore down at Whiteford High School, and for band competition, we'd come up to, at that time, the new Saline High School. And so I knew I'd been in the building. And it's a lot similar to Whiteford High School, where I went to high school. The rooms were very, very similar. It was built like within 1 year of one another. The big wooden beams that were in the Liberty gym there, just like Whiteford High School, where I played basketball. I knew I was at home. Anyway, it was a great building, great time. I knew I was in a great place here at Saline. Hey, let's go to 1990s now. I'll set a little bit of a stage here. We're at a middle school track meet against Chelsea. Very good competition. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon, sunny day, about 80 degrees. We're at what's called now the Corona Athletic Complex. All the 200 approximately 200 middle school kids, boys and girls, had brought their backpacks and track gear out to the middle of the football field. And, they got their blue shorts on, they got their blue track shirts with a gold winged shoe for their track uniforms. And, that had started back in '68, and I believe when I walked around the building a couple weeks ago, some of those kids are still wearing, they're still using that track shirt for middle school track. Tradition continues. Whiteford was a blue and gold. I landed here, blue and gold. Great comfort. Anyway, just before the track meet, it's kind of like controlled chaos. There's 17 events. The day before, the other 3 coaches and myself had put kids into the 17 events. We tried to put 2 kids in every event, and of course some of the better athletes in 3 events, so that we could make sure we had enough points to beat Chelsea, a very good track team. Well, I was looking around at that time. We also had 12 parents that I called the day before and said, hey, can you come and help out at the track meet? So there's 4 of them at each of the field events, and we got another 8 parents at the finish line. And just looking around and all the kids and the kids from Chelsea, bang! It started the first event. I looked down, I hadn't even started my stopwatch. Well, that's the way the meet started. Halfway through the meet, I'm looking around, the kids, everybody was getting to their events. I thought, hey, this is pretty good. How many kids want to be in the 70-meter dash? Oh, about half the track team. You try to put them in a 400 once around the track. No, coach, just let me run the 70. Well, we're getting down to the last event, the 4x400 relay. Looked at the score on my sheet, always kept score. Hey, we're behind by 2 points, so as that relay team for us was coming up to the starting line, I said, hey guys, come on over here. We got to win this one. It's worth 5 points, so if you guys can win this relay, we're going to win by 3 points. Well, make sure you get some good handoffs, have fun. Sure enough, they won that relay, we won the track meet. So it gave me a great appreciation for all the effort that those kids put into it. I guess that's why I stuck around for about 30 years coaching those track teams. It was a lot of fun, really. When you get down and they're cheering and the kids are just jumping up and down, having a lot of fun, it's great to see their success. One little story. Let's go on to 2000 now. In 2000, I went to a Michigan Council of Teachers Mathematics Conference. I saw this red t-shirt. On the t-shirt, it had an I in white, a heart in white, and it says math. So I love math. I said, I'm going to get that. Well, I wore that quite a few times in the classroom. And when I'd walk into the classroom, the kids would say, I love math. How many of those kids would say, hey, I love math? Only about a third. The other third of the kids would go, oh, I hate math. The other third, well, they kind of just, so what? But it was nice for me to set a positive attitude about math. And I thought that was one way. I figured, if I wear it for a whole class period, by the time the kids went home and they fell asleep, they'd have visions of, I love math, I love math, I love math. Maybe that'd help just a little bit the next day. Well, I do love math. I love teaching it. Well, a total of 38 years, 4 years high school before I came here to Saline. It's been a great career, and I still have helped out at the high school doing a little bit substituting now. But today, this is my classroom. You're my students. So here's my little favorite phrase. I'm going to say a line. And please, everybody, please, have fun with me here, all right? And so repeat after me. So first line, math is great.
Math is great.
Math is fun.
Math is fun.
Math is loved.
Math is loved.
By everyone.
By everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dwayne. The fifth honoree here tonight is Mary Thomas. Mary is a native of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, which makes her our favorite Uber. She came to Saline in 1980, right after graduating from the University of Michigan. And I don't know if Jennifer had her as a teacher, but I know that I did. And I don't think as a 17-year-old I was aware that my teacher was just about 3.5, 4 years older than I was at the time. But I can tell you this. Her passion for teaching was evident to anybody who had her as a student. She was one of the most positive people that I had been around as a high school student, and I know that my classmates, many of them share in that. Her passion is evident throughout her entire career. She taught every Spanish class that Saline High School has offered, and including the first advanced placement class in 1992. In addition, she's directed plays, coached forensics, was the advisor for National Honor Society, and served as a class advisor for 2 classes in 1991 and 94. I did ask her last night if she wanted to teach Spanish again, because we are in need of a world language teacher. Likely decline, but we are still going to induct her into the Hall of Fame. So it's been a great pleasure to introduce you, Mary Thomas.
Thank you, Kurt, for those kind words. I'm not exactly sure how we arrived at this evening, September 14th, 2019. It's astounding because by my calculations, 38 years have passed. They've zipped by since you were a sophomore in my class. Yes, 38 years ago, Kurt Ellis was starting his 2nd year of high school, and I was starting my 2nd year of teaching. I have no idea what was going through Kurt's mind at the time, but after I barely survived my 1st year of teaching at Saline High School, I know that I was asking myself, can I really do this for another 182 days? So, back to my original question. How is it that we've arrived here this evening? To answer that, we have to go back further in time to August 31st. It was a Sunday evening, 1980. I was in my apartment eating pork chops, green beans, and rice. And yes, I really do remember that that's what I was eating. At the time, my phone rang. An unfamiliar and booming voice was on the other end of the line. Is this Mary Kamen? Mary Kamen from Kingsford High School? After I confirmed my identity, the voice went on to say, this is Paul Tebow, principal at Saline High School. Did you go to school with my nephew, Charlie Lawrence? Charlie and I had, in fact, been good friends, so that was an easy question to answer. By this point, I had no idea what the other questions were going to be coming my way, but my heart was racing. I knew that this was not a telemarketer or some guy calling to tell me that I had won the Publishers Clearinghouse Grand Prize. What I did not know was that that call was about to change my life. Paul went on to ask a key question. He said, are you still available to teach Spanish? Because we're looking for a Spanish teacher to start work this Thursday. Were you listening? I told you it was Sunday night. He wanted me to be there to start a job on Thursday. By that point, not only was my heart racing, but my mind was whirling, and I was trying to keep up with what was going on. We agreed that I would come in for an interview on Tuesday, and I still remember Paul's parting shot as he was hanging up. Don't bother to get gussied up, just come in and be yourself. So I did just that, and so began my connection to Saline Area Schools. At that point in my life, I was pretty sure of two things. One, I was only going to do this teaching gig for a couple of years. And two, since I was becoming a teacher, my time as a student was done. I was completely wrong on both counts. I ended up working in the classroom for 29 years, and through that entire time, it's safe to say that I did as much or more learning as I did teaching. What did I learn? I learned that it really does take a village to be effective in the classroom. You need help and input from administrators, counselors, support staff, custodians, colleagues, the community, parents, and students. Fortunately, Saline is that village, and for that I'm extremely grateful. I learned that teaching is in many ways a team sport. Of course, when you close that door of your classroom, it's a one-woman show, but it's the totality of what goes on in every classroom throughout the building that tells the whole story. People say, nothing breeds success like success. There's no doubt that Saline Schools have fostered standards of excellence which are achieved daily by dedicated teachers, such as Jim Cameron and Dwayne Koppelman, who are committed to doing what is best for their students. I want to extend my appreciation to my colleagues in the high school and all the teachers throughout the district throughout the years who, through their hard work and professionalism, helped to make me a better teacher on a winning team. I learned that friendships, especially those that are born in that 23 minutes of precious lunchtime, those friendships go a long way in getting through a tough day. And for that, I want to thank Barb Cornish, Ruth Gomez, Bettina Hoops, Joyce Jonick, Liz Moore, and Laura Washington. I learned that there is much to be gained from activities that take place outside the classroom as from those things that take place inside the classroom. Most people don't measure professional success based on the following: putting on proms, building floats, organizing senior shows, chaperoning dances, performing in the mock rock, taking students to Europe, putting on canned food drives, or attending what sometimes seemed like 10,000 track and cross-country meets. The truth is, that time and effort was well spent and as meaningful as what happened every day in the classroom. I learned that family is your strongest line of defense in overcoming struggles and the best cheerleaders in celebrating your successes. For that, I have to thank two important people in my family who were able to be here tonight, my better half, Mike Smith, and our daughter, Megan Passionate. Thank you for making the tough times easier and the good times sweeter. I learned that making a connection with students is truly the fuel that makes this educational process run. These days, it's not uncommon to hear the students are our customers. I prefer to think that the students are our partners. We're really in this together. Their successes are our successes, and our successes are theirs. And tonight, I'm proud to share in this moment with Jennifer Allison. She was a remarkable young woman in high school and has distinguished herself throughout her career as a writer. Finally, I learned that your life's trajectory can change in a 5-minute phone call. Who knew that that booming voice would become the foundation of my career? Thank you, Paul, for dialing my number, and many thanks to the Saline Foundation for this recognition. It was an honor to spend so many years teaching and learning at Saline High School. Thank you.
Those of us who are honored and privileged to work in Saline Area Schools today are often asked by parents or prospective parents, what makes Saline different? Why Saline? And I think you can see today with these 5 individuals sitting up here, the people are the big difference maker in this district. Our foundation is very, very proud of these 5 outstanding individuals and couldn't be more honored to award them this Hall of Fame recognition here tonight. So please join me in giving one more warm round of applause. You may have noticed earlier this evening that the plaques honoring these 5 individuals plus the 37 individuals who preceded them in the last 5 years are permanently and prominently displayed in the hallway right outside the Ellen Ewing Center for the Performing Arts. And shortly after we finish here, there will be a reception with some dessert and some refreshments out there for you that's been donated to us by Chartwell's here tonight. So I'd like to thank Chartwell's as well for that. We are going to ask the Hall of Fame inductees if they could take a few pictures in front of the Hall of Fame, in front of their plaques, so that those who want to get those can do so. So if you would be so kind, I know you all want to catch up with them, but if we can get them out there to get those pictures taken, then you can all enjoy that social time together with one another after that. In the coming months, we are going to begin accepting nominations for the 2020 Hall of Fame, which will be our 7th class. And so I ask each of you here tonight, after hearing the speeches from these individuals, to give thought to some other folks who might deserve to be recognized in this Hall of Fame. It's important to us that we honor our past so that we can build a future to go forth and follow. So on behalf of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, I would absolutely like to congratulate the newly enshrined Hall of Fame members tonight and invite you to the hall for some refreshments afterward. Drive safely and enjoy the remainder of your evening. Thank you.